I'll just fix it in post. Ugh! Idiot. Hello lovely people of YouTube and welcome back to Mark on Life. Again, thank you everybody who watched last week's episode of Reeltrospectives, which was The Kong's Speech. A sketch about King Kong and Kong Skull Island, starring Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, John C. Reilly and lots of other wonderful people, that is out right now. If you didn't see it, I will leave a link in the description below. Now, in filmmaking circles, you may have heard the term, "we'll fix it in post." And most of the time, it is used ironically. Well, it should be used ironically. It is a sort of a piss-take phrase to show the idiocy of people that do that. If you hear that phrase used seriously on a film set, run. Run a mile, because as you will discover from this vlog, it's not a good idea. For those who don't know what it means at all, we'll fix it in post, refers to post-production. So films or any piece of video content has pre-production, so all of the preparation and planning and all the stuff that goes into it. Then production or principal photography, which is the actual making, the filming of the thing itself. And then post-production, so all the editing, the Foley, the music, the special effects, all that kind of stuff. So it's pre-production and then post. So when people have said that in the past, what it means is that they haven't got it right there in the moment on set, and they'll just fix it in post. The editor or whoever will kind of correct the mistakes that have been made there by, you know, adding to them or covering them up or whatever. And it's now it's used almost as a joke, you know what I mean? Yeah, fix it in post. Where all directors, all good directors, know that this is something you should never ever do. General rule of thumb. And for anybody out there that's making content now and doesn't know this, this is the general rule of thumb. You need to get everything as correct as possible in camera, right in here, on the day. So your lighting, your sound, performances, everything like that, you want to get them as close to perfect on the day as you can. Obviously, that's not always possible sometimes. There are limitations. And some directors in history have gone to the extreme for this. The standout example is always Stanley Kubrick. You know, one of the greatest directors of all time. But he would do enormous amount of takes. He would do 10, 20, 30, 100 takes sometimes of something very, very simple. Sometimes for the performance element, he's known to want to drive actors past the point of mania so they get to the right state simply by doing so many takes. But also for the technical aspects. And actors might think, well, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do walking down a corridor 20 times, 30 times? But it could be something very, very small. The lighting doesn't work, or the camera move doesn't quite work, or just something that if you don't get it right, you may or may not be able to fix it in post. Because to dispel the myth slightly, there are things that you can fix in post now that you couldn't back in Kubrick's day. For example, framing. Framing is something that now is possible to correct in post-production. By framing, again, I mean, what is this frame that I have got? So here, I'm set up in a sort of mid-shot, head and shoulders. But what if I wanted a close-up? Well, what you would do is you would film a close-up. However, what if you forgot to do a close-up? These days, you can correct it. Back in the day, you couldn't, you know, because what you would have to do is zoom in to from that medium shot, and so obviously it would be grainy and horrible, because if this is your resolution and then you zoom into it, you're going to lose a lot of detail. But these days you shoot at very, very, very high resolutions. It's very popular now to shoot in 4K. Again, for those who don't know anything about resolutions, you have the standard definition resolutions and the high definition ones. You may have heard of these in your TV. So you had, the standard definition ones, 360 and 480p. You'll see them on the YouTube, selector, which resolution do you want them in. And then the high definition ones, 720p and 1080p was the highest standard one for most people. And now in filmmaking, they shoot at 2K, 3K and 4K. So if you're shooting in 4K, you've got a huge amount of detail in there, huge resolution to work with. So that if you had this frame that I'm in now, and you were shooting at 4K, and you wanted to do a close-up, but you couldn't go and shoot it again because you don't have the actor, you don't have time, don't have the budget or whatever, you can just punch in to that part of the screen, or just even a tiny part of the screen, and because the resolution's so high, when you zoom in on it, the resolution will still be good, definitely good enough to watch. So it's that kind of thing that actually now, as much of a joke as it is, you can correct in post. You can fix that stuff in post-production. But there's some things that I would never do, and they're the things that I did do last week. So last week's episode of Reeltrospectives, the King Kong episode, was a different one for me. Now, I like how every episode is a challenge now. That's what I find fascinating about doing them, because I'm learning each time I do an episode. And last series, for anybody that watched it, I did an episode about Halloween with Michael Myers. And that character, as you'll all know, wears a mask. Now, even though he wears a mask, and you can't see his mouth moving at all, I did actually use a microphone. So all the sound was done on set. Apart from one shot, actually. There was one shot that the microphone was turned off accidentally. And so I had to use ADR. So again, I don't have equipment, like expensive equipment or anything. I shoot on an iPhone 6S. And I have a little Rode SmartLav Plus, £40 microphone that just plugs directly into the phone. So I just did the lines on there, put them into my editing program, and just sort of played with it till it sounded right. But that was a couple of lines. This time round, because the character of King Kong also had a costume where you couldn't see my mouth move, as actually was Jaws, I should point that out. In the very first episode, I did the same thing as Halloween. I used a mic. But this one I thought, well, we could do it another way. We could just do the actions, and then, because you can't see my mouth, just record it all, and then match it up. Don't ever, ever, ever do this. Promise me. So that's what I did. I went to the park, and we sort of went through the script. More realistically, I just sort of did arbitrary movements for, 10 minutes to the left, to the right, up, down, rah, angry, sad, that kind of stuff. Going through the script in my head, what kind of movements might fit it, but not precisely by any stretch of the imagination. And then shooting the rest of it with no sound. No sound at all. I think I got a wild track while I was there, and I had one previously from the same location. But zero sound. So that meant the gargantuan task of doing it all in post. Yes, it makes the process of shooting it easier and less time standing around in a public park in a hot monkey suit. But it meant that the edit was 10 times more difficult. These days, I'm getting to the grip with editing, and of a regular episode, I can put an assembly cut together, which is like the first draft cut, in about an hour or so. This one took me about 6 or 7 hours just to put an assembly together. Because what I had to do is get all the lines down, so record an MP3 of every single line in the script, 2 or 3 different ways, record them all, then record the Foley, so the foot stomping and this and that, and the wild track of the park down the road, and get some random bird song off some videos and stuff, and everything. Every single sound you hear was not done on site. Every single one. Which, to be honest, when I was doing it, I actually thought, if I can come up with something that's even vaguely serviceable, I'm going to be very proud of myself. And I think I did that. I don't think you look at it and go, oh my God, that's dreadful. I think you watch it and it is what it is, and I'm very proud to have done that. Would I do it again? No, I would not. I would use the mic every time now. So it's a good lesson that, you know, should you fix it in post? Nah, you shouldn't. But I also want this to be a message to people that you can do it. You know, firstly, there are things you can do. Like I said, you're shooting high resolution, you can punch in, and phones will do it these days. You don't need big equipment. My phone, like I said, is an iPhone 6s, and it shoots 4K, and I'm sure all the other ones as well. All the high-level smartphones will shoot really good resolution. And particularly as most people are watching it on here, on a phone. They're not watching it on a big TV or probably even a computer, most people. The majority are watching it on phones, which are so small that 1080p is more than enough to not notice. So anything higher than that, and you can do whatever you want. And if you're ever in trouble, it can be done. It can be done. I don't advise it, but it can be done. So I think... I just wanted to talk about what that was like today. That was the point of this long, rambly vlog, is that I just don't advise ever doing anything in post unless you have to. It's a challenge, and having to go through line by line by line, trying to sort of arbitrarily match each line to an action, going through like 10-20 minutes of footage just to find the action and not reuse an action over and over again, was a challenge in itself. Worth doing once, but never again. So yeah, should you fix it in post? Nah, probably not. Also, just before I go, just recently shot another comedy video with Sneaky Zebra, so I will put a link in the description to that as well, because they are fantastic. What about you guys? Are you real sticklers for getting everything right on set at the time, as you should be? Or do you do what I did and try and fix it in post? Let me know in a comment, and we can discuss. Next week's episode of Reeltrospectives, episode 3, is going to be Power Rangers. Woo! So look forward to that. And from me, Mark on Life, I'll speak to you soon.